Every civilization leaves behind its heroes, its conquerors, saints, gods, monsters, and villains. Tamriel is no different. Its history stretches back thousands of years, filled with wars, legends, betrayals, and empires. There are many names that have shaped its story. Some were forgotten, others became immortal. But there is one name that refuses to disappear. A name whispered in temples, debated by scholars, praised by some, and cursed by others. That name is Lorkhan. Ask an old Nord who he was, and you'll hear the story of Shor, a god who gave mankind a world to call their own. Ask an Imperial, and they'll speak of Shazar, the missing god. Travel south to elsewhere, and the Khajiit will tell you of Lorkhan, born with darkness in his heart. But ask an Altmer, and you'll hear the name Lorkhan spoken with bitterness, because to them he is the architect of the greatest betrayal ever committed. The remarkable thing isn't that all these stories disagree, it's that they exist at all. Across continents, across races, across thousands of years. Every civilization remembers him, not as the same man, not even as the same god, but as someone whose actions changed the fate of everything, whether he was a creator, a deceiver, a visionary, or a fool. Depends entirely on who is telling the story. So before we explore the rise of empires, before we walk the halls of the Dwemer, before we stand beneath Red Mountain, we have to go back to the very beginning, to a time before history, before kingdoms, before mortals, before the world itself, because that's where the story of Lorkhan begins. Before we can understand Lorkhan, we have to forget everything we know about Tamriel. Before there was even a world, the oldest stories tell us there was only the Aurbis, which was the totality of existence, a place that existed long before the first mortal ever drew breath. The earliest age of creation is known as the Dawn Era, an age so distant and so strange that many scholars argue it cannot truly be understood by mortal minds. The stories that survive from this time don't read like history. They read like mythology. Different cultures tell them differently. They disagree over names, over events, and even over the order in which things happened. But almost all of them agree on one thing. Before there were mortals, there were spirits. Ancient beings of unimaginable power. They did not build kingdoms. They did not wage wars. They simply were, existing in a reality untouched by death, untouched by age, untouched by change. And then, one spirit imagined something that none of the others had. A world, not of immortal spirits, but of mortal lives. A place where things could grow, struggle, love, fail, and die. That spirit was Lorkhan. Who Lorkhan truly was is impossible to say. Unlike many figures throughout Tamriel's history, he left behind no writings, no speeches, no account of his own. Everything we know about him comes from those who remembered him, or those who condemned him. The oldest stories describe him as one of the Itada, one of the original spirits who existed before the world itself. But from that point onwards, the stories begin to divide. Not just about who Lorkhan was, but about what he intended. Most traditions agree that it was Lorkhan who first proposed the creation of a mortal world. A place unlike anything that had ever existed before. A place with limits, where time would flow in only one direction, where every life would have a beginning and an end. Why he proposed such a world? is where the stories begin to diverge. The Dwemer believed Lorkhan deceived the other spirits, promising them greatness, while concealing the terrible price they would pay. To them, the mortal world was never a gift. It was a prison, a place where immortal spirits became trapped within fragile mortal lives. Human traditions remember the moment very differently. Rather than a deception, they remember it as an act of creation, the beginning of history, the beginning of purpose, the beginning of everything that makes life worth living. And perhaps that is why Lorkhan remains such a mystery. The same decision, remembered as the greatest act of generosity and the greatest act of betrayal, at exactly the same time. Whatever Lorkhan's true intentions may have been, he could not create this new world alone. According to the oldest traditions, he took his idea to the other Etada. He asked them to build something that he'd never existed before, a new realm, one that would be separate from the timeless existence they had always known. Some listened, some refused. Others remained uncertain, but enough agreed, and the work began. The creation of this new realm would demand something no spirit had ever been asked to give before. Themselves, not their loyalty, not their service, their very essence. Each spirit that chose to take part surrendered a part of their own divine power to shape this new reality. Mountains, seas, forests, the sky above, the earth below. Every part of the mortal world came at a cost. With every act of creation, the spirits became weaker. Some realized the sacrifice far too late, others accepted it willingly. And one spirit, known as Magnus, began to question whether the price was too great. Magnus was no ordinary spirit. According to many traditions, he was the architect of creation, the one who understood how Lorkhan's vision could be made real. If Lorkhan imagined the world, it was Magnus who helped design it. And so, together with countless other spirits, the work began. Slowly, the formless void gave way to something entirely new. The first stones, the first seas, the first skies, the first stars. For the first time, there was a place that could truly be called a world. The spirits had given shape to the impossible. But as their work continued, something became painfully clear. This was no ordinary act of creation. The world was not being built from nothing. It was being built from them. Every mountain, every river, every forest, every law that governed this new reality demanded another piece of the spirits who had created it. Their power was not returning. It was becoming part of the world itself, and with every passing moment, the cost grew greater. It was then that Magnus understood what this creation would ultimately require. If the work continued, there would be nothing left of those who had begun it. According to the oldest traditions, Magnus chose to leave before the work was complete. As he fled, many other spirits followed him. Together, they tore their way back out of this new reality. The great rift left by Magnus became the sun. The paths carved by those who followed became the stars. And through those openings, the light of Aetherius once again reached the mortal world. But not everyone left. Many spirits remained behind. Some because they believed in Lorkhan's vision, others because it was already too late. They had sacrificed too much. Too much of themselves had already become part of the world they were creating. There was no returning to what they had once been. These spirits would become known as the Aedra, meaning our ancestors in the ancient Elven language of Aldmeriz. Mortals quite literally inherited a world built from their sacrifice. The world had been created, but its creators had paid an unimaginable price. And as the truth of that sacrifice became clear, so too did the question that would shape the fate of every spirit involved. What to do with the one responsible for this mess? The spirits gathered to pass judgment. The place would become known as the Adamantian Tower, the oldest structure in all of Tamriel. It was there, according to legend, that the fate of Lorkhan would finally be decided. For the spirits who remained, there could be no undoing what had been done. The world already existed. The sacrifice had already been made. Only one question remained. Should Lorkhan answer for it? What happened next is remembered in remarkably similar ways. Though the details differ, the outcome rarely does. Lorkhan stood before the spirits he had persuaded to create the mortal world. Whether he defended himself, whether he remained silent, or whether any trial took place at all, the histories cannot agree. But almost every tradition reaches the same conclusion. Lorkhan was condemned. The sentence was unlike anything that had come before it. His divine heart was torn from his body, a punishment intended to end both his influence and his legacy. Yet even then, the stories refuse to agree. Some claim that god Trinimac carried out the sentence. Others place Auriel at the center of the judgment. Different cultures remember different executioners, but they all remember the heart. They tell of it being cast across the newborn world due to its inability to be destroyed, according to one of the oldest traditions. Wherever it finally came to rest, Nirn itself rose to meet it. That place would one day become known as Red Mountain. The spirits believed they had ended Lorkhan's story. In truth, they had only written its first chapter. For most stories, that would have been the end. The Creator punished, the world complete, history moving on without him. But history did not move on, because although Lorkhan's body had fallen, his greatest creation remained. The mortal world endured, a place where every living thing would know joy, loss, hope, fear, birth, and death. Whether those things were a blessing or a curse would become one of the oldest arguments in Tamriel, an argument that still has no answer. To the descendants of the Dwemer, Lorkhan stole something priceless. He condemned immortal spirits to lives of suffering and limitation. To many human cultures, he gave them the greatest gift imaginable, a world where courage mattered, where sacrifice meant something, where every life, precisely because it would end, had value. Perhaps both are true, or perhaps neither is. That is the nature of Elder Scrolls mythology. It rarely offers certainty, only perspectives. Thousands of years later, the world Lorkhan imagines still stands. Empires have risen and fallen. Gods have come and gone. Heroes have been remembered and forgotten. Yet every road through Tamriel's history still seems to lead back to one name: Lorkhan, the missing god, the creator, the deceiver, the visionary, the fool. Perhaps all of them, or perhaps none. Whether Lorkhan was a visionary or a deceiver is a question that has echoed across Tamriel for thousands of years. Perhaps that's why his story has endured, not because everyone agrees, but because no one does. And maybe that's exactly how it was always meant to be. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this documentary and you'd like to see more deep dives into the history, mythology, and mysteries of the Elder Scrolls, consider subscribing. It genuinely helps the channel grow, and it means I can keep making projects like this. Until next time, may your road lead you to warm sands.